His poems have been featured on Poetry Daily, Verse Daily, and Writer's Almanac. Currently, he's a professor of English at Columbia State Community College in Columbia, Tennessee, and he serves as the editor for the online journal One. Let's give a big hand for Jill Hardin.
Hello. Hello. Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I tend to always read the poem I've written this morning, so this is the one I wrote this morning. It's called Taking Up the Cause of Acceptance. I've been doing a lot of poems that have that similar title, so I'm taking up the causes of certain values, I guess. These are my subversive protest poems. Taking up the cause of acceptance. A man speaking, if we listen closely, is still a boy wandering an aftermath for which his language stumbles but cannot find a way out. His faith, like ours, needs less words defending its existence and more song gathering together one soul and another until there's only one voice. This glass darkly we see through gives little peace. Through a forest we make our way, searching the canopy, while all along the understory thickens. Explanations convince only the already convinced. Others haven't walked past the site where a bomb exploded, where every other day one's path aligned. Meanwhile, Christ keeps speaking to the lame. The lake's blue stuns the sky. One's breath enters wind, becoming spirit, going one knows not where. A new creation. What I was doing was praying, I think, being up the hill, overlooking the river. Though had you passed by and seen me, you might have thought me wandering or lost or even forlorn because of how slow my pace was. And had you waved or called out to me, I might have tossed up a hand, maybe reflex, maybe resignation, though just as likely I might have left. I do that, you know. I might have hailed your presence, as wonderful to speak as cinnabar, as milkweed, and knelt right there amid sage-grass stalks, gentled by wind. I have no shame in such things, and often out loud state matter-of-factly, do unto others, and my neighbor as myself. For such words, too, are wonderful to speak, as holy as wind, as lashed and bent as sage-grass. I don't know anymore what I'm doing in this world, what this world is becoming, why we don't sing all the time as a comfort, how we walk past a snail on its journey. Maybe what I was doing was talking to the river on its way toward the south, and maybe I was speaking to no one, the no one I am, thankful for words, their presence on air, breathed in and breathed out, created again. I don't think I've ever read this poem in public, and it's in my first book, which came out many years ago, 2005, although the poem is, I think I wrote it in 1998, so this is like a 21-year-old poem. It's called Breathing Exercise. That poet named Anonymous, maybe he or she had it right. What claim can anyone have when right words come along? After all, it's not one's name that alters the girl's sense of herself when she's stolen in among the burdened stacks. And while we're at it, Let us imagine the long night through which the insomniac counts his many selves. Perhaps if many breathe and measure on his behalf, he'll close his eyes and be again in that meadow he desires. What we give the world deserves suspicion. An old man, bitter and poor, mumbling about the size of his woodpile. We expect ovation, long applause, generous predictions. Yet the ash pan is full, needs dumping past the barn. All children need notepads and fat pencils and 3 days alone, with a branch running through their neighborhood. Don't come back, we should warn them, until you've squinted into leaf-wrought corridors and written 1,000 psalms and lost your way gladly home. Someone has to point us toward the intimate. Someone needs to know a harp's faint sound in the background when soldiers start door to door. Oh, why don't we admit we're exhausted? It takes great effort not to shout for joy when we see each other. So I was thinking on this particular date, 16 years ago, I wrote a poem. I actually wrote two. I guess I keep track of these, are the ones that end up in books. Now, this is called Precisely. So this was written on the 12th of November, 2003. Precisely. The steady news of horror tries its best and would succeed. But then a poem is read, a gate left open, where stones appear throughout the shallow creek bed, sunlight struck along their rims. Impossible to scrape the watery golden hue into the hand, to carry it like a talisman, but not impossible, not at all, to carry forth all day the thought of having done so, the palpable, shimmering, bottomless to savor thought. And I guess since I mentioned it, I'll read the other one I wrote on this date, which was 14 years ago, 2005. So I was at my favorite coffee shop, Buckhead Coffee Shop in Columbia, Tennessee, and I watched a man, the title of the poem is Old Man with a Cane. I watched this old man go across the parking lot, and I mean, it was just empty, just barely. And I almost wanted to go to him. Old Man with a Cane. It's a book of sonnets, restoring the narrative, so I've only got 14 lines with this one. So old, his steps are inches at a time, so that it takes him minutes to advance across the parking lot to find his car. A cane he touches out ahead to see if he should stop, change course, continue on. Whatever pleading holds his feeble frame upright, whatever tenderness allows him space upon this earth, I now applaud. And that he ever came to be at all, diminished as he is cause enough to get up casually and wander toward the place he's getting closer to, then turn, say, lovely day, and let me get that door for you, and isn't this the sweetest life? So this is called Taking Up the Cause of Gentleness. It's forthcoming in the journal Grist, which is published at the University of Tennessee. I've got a couple of those, taking up the cause of faithfulness and taking up the cause of gentleness. The least gesture is political, even if unseen. The father kneels to pray, later swings wide a field gate. The implications are endless. We say, how strange or how odd. I'm thinking, how infinity. I'm singing, how unknown and then known and then deeper into mystery. I can think of one or two whispers that altered time. The force that turns our minds may be as gentle as a vowel lifting the center of a word. Whatever history is becoming, we might do well to trace certain themes back to a boy standing in a stream, bent to choose a stone, gleaming. We may be nearing the end already. Some hamlet from the tree line begins a soliloquy, then lets it go. There are so many words between the words we know. So this is my new book, Clearing Space in the Middle of Being. Is that what Maggie Vaughn would always say? Oh, honey, show them the cover. Isn't that beautiful? Love this cover. These poems, I was playing around with a lot of opposite words, and hopefully you'll be able to hear these. At the end of one thought, I drop the line, and then the last word on the end of the next line is always the opposite of the word I just ended with. So this is called The Gaps That Can't Be Brought Together. Difficult at best to catalog every influence exerting pressure on this or that thought, and probably no one's interested anyway beyond a cursory acknowledgement of how easy or natural it is to fall under another moment's spell. Just as likely, we're illiterate to what the point is or is building toward, unable to follow a simple line of reasoning that begins in what passes for civility, but then becomes indistinguishable from history's usual conflicts. Bits and pieces accumulate, though not on the same schedules, some arriving early, others midway through, and some after what's been studied intently has been brushed aside and expunged from the record completely. Even in Sappho's fragments, some residue exists of her time and place, the sound of waves if we listen closely, and the reach to touch a reader, despite the blank spaces between words which now, more than the words, seem to comprise her oeuvre. One part of what a thought is the thought of what it is. Another part, the gaps that can't be brought together, not even centuries later, once others have aimed their own thoughts to fill in the emptiness, attempting a fullness that may be just another invented notion to keep us sane, searching, occupied, and alas, reassured, despite the evidence that what we know won't slide and become again unknown. This is my book, No Other Kind of World. And, I think I want to read the first poem in this. It's called Immeasurable. I spent a lot of years with particular poets like Yanis Ritsos. He's a Greek poet. He's like, I guess his books stacked up might be as tall as I am. Pablo Neruda. I mean, how much did he put into books? A lot, right? So, Immeasurable. I'm kind of thinking of how I started this book with the idea of immeasurable. Then I ended the book with being led along so that anywhere I go, I'm found. You know, so you're searching for something at the beginning and found at the end. Immeasurable. Having read and loved a poem by Neruda, good luck finding it again in all those pages, book after book. and a passage, stanza, or phrase might as well reach inside a waterfall, pull out a lily or a lighthouse. The words will have turned already to enigma or shade of acacia trees, an incoming wave on the sand. And forget trying to place again a single word, the one from which you felt a shiver. It has pledged itself to silence, wind, aroma of some yesterday only your bones can know. You are now a servant of uncertainties. Having known and moved among borders, having sailed through open doors and solitudes and danced upon pollen, your mouth open, tasting of pulse on the air, having touched surf and shawl and the rain inside piano notes lingering all night. Now you know nothing. A child again, who picks up rocks, tosses them into a stream, each disappearing for perhaps millennia, or never to be touched again, like a thought. And then I've got a poem coming out in Sugar House Review. I've appeared there a few times over the years. And many years ago, I was writing these poems with titles. As you can tell, I kind of get on a kick, right, taking up the cause of. But I have a whole series of poems based on a kind of stem, like a word that means, and then like we don't have a word for this. So a word that means the joy of being wrong. That's the title of the poem. I love those ridiculous ideas no one can prove. I've made wild mistakes, but studying the reeds sway at the pond's edge wasn't one of them. One reason the poet says that's true, is so he won't forget the joy of being wrong, of being cast off like a stone from the path. If you meet me on the street, don't be surprised if offered sweet gum balls from my hand into yours. We're two with consciousness, so gifts are all we have. My daughter lying prostrate at the lily's stem is reaching back in hunger to those books she read. It's into phonemes that sturdy the clutch of her cells. Go right ahead and tell stories of brave men. I think I'll go on listening for small steps of the mouse out there in the cucumber field all night. This is called an assurance of something unforeseen. I assumed I was on my way, going somewhere, soon to arrive, bound for a greatness few imagined, but I was only returning to my porch chair. History, it seems, has swallowed the innocence and rotted the cross. The explanations we rely on may be random words drawn from discarded books. For a while, being felt like an assurance of something unforeseen but understood in time, like marigolds at the edge of a conversation that is mostly silence. I see now I've been reading one book my whole life. I jot notes in the margins and imagine that years later they are read as part of the text. The truth is, I take note when a woodpecker thrums. Though I've lived half a century, I'm still that boy, arm deep in the feed barrel, stirring to find a golden seed. So I think I'll end with a poem called, you know what an abecedarian poem is? play around with the alphabet. There's several versions of the way you can do that. 26-word poem where every next word is a letter of the alphabet, or begins with the next letter. No Other Kind of World has a couple of abecedarian poems. One addressed to my assassins. Assassins, I know you're out there. You know. And another one with my son asked me these one time, how many lives do you have when we're playing a video game? And I suddenly thought, oh, I have all these lives, you know, based on authors I've read. And so I wrote an abecedarian with authors' last names in the left-hand margin. But this is one I've never published, and I think it's probably too whimsical, but I don't know. We'll see. It goes from the title straight into the poem. That one imagined day when time is on our side, avenues filled with everyone we know, milling about, bearing gifts they've brought for no one in particular, crystal goblets, broken clocks, lampshade hats, even dictionaries full of searing words that might, this time, reap extravagance of spirit toward fellow earth wanderers. Funny gifts to show the child we were, the child we still can be. Good for us, and what the day can be, our contribution to its wide renown. Heisenberg could walk among us, his own Elysian field. Icarus would say this town was just the place to come back to. Jars of gumballs wait on windowsills, and old men flying kites tie them to the wrists of children, then from nowhere pull out lassos, aha, and tease at roping anyone who looks their way. Mayhem with a touch of whimsy. That's all we ever wanted anyway. Not that other life of staring straight ahead to get somewhere, oblivious to men on stilts, or how a fortune cookie granting pearls could be a neat idea. Then, how pleasing, raindrops patter quietly on the women's skirts, small blooms. And who's to say refrains like these don't nudge us toward each other? And who's to say some child won't pick those blooms? For one is trying, and her mother doesn't tell her otherwise. And one man navigates the crowd, a blank canvas uplifted, so the sky too can express itself. And there is singing, dancing, vital speeches for a change. A thankful mayor crowned with tulip stems, woven for this day. Enthusiastically, he leads grandmother graffiti artist, Xing every wall, sign, tree, and shirt, because everything and everyone is treasure yet to be discovered. And on this day, nobody seems to mind how many zeros paychecks boast, since willow leaves stagger the places where we walk.